Okay, we just got a beat going via MIDI on the synthesizer, and we were sequencing the synthesizer in the previous MIDI tutorial. And now we're gonna get into a second tutorial to look into all the details that are related to MIDI. In the utility mode, there are different pages which we didn't cover yet. So the first page we already looked into. In the second, there are some like click mode, click beat, rec count, and LED display. By the way, you can change it to the bars instead of the BPM, which is quite nice. But this is not MIDI related. But in the next page, you can see there are some MIDI related changes or parameters to change. And the event chase is basically something that when you start your song, for example, in the middle, and you had some program changes before, you might miss them out because you started your sequence or your song in the middle. And in order to prevent this situation from happening in which you're playing a bad voice, or not a bad voice, but a voice that's not supposed to be playing because you should have changed it before, but it didn't because you didn't play this point in time at which this program change should have happened, as an example, then you can have the event chase enabled, and you can enable it for specific things. For example, here it's only program changes, and you can change it even for more. You just have to be super careful, because if you change it to all, then you might mess up your MIDI devices. So they maybe get like so many MIDI information that they would just not react anymore, or something like that. So be very careful in changing this parameter. But I think, when you enable this, this is probably pretty safe, but it would just like play in one go all the MIDI devices up to the point, MIDI messages up to the point at which you're playing the song, so you're safe with your voice and programs and everything. Sysx is something that's used a lot in other devices and other groove boxes to send larger chunks of data out via MIDI. And in case you're encountering some issues with sysx, then you might want to change it to an increment of 100 and try it again. If it's not working, try the increment by 100 and try it again, and so on and so forth. There's different views here. So the default view is pretty much what's the layout for the Yamaha RM1X, but you can also change it to a normal mode, which is more like the MIDI generic mode here. So you can also change the display, by the way, nothing MIDI related, but nice to know. Okay, so there's another MIDI menu in which you can configure the MIDI Swing. So if you have it to internal, everything is fine. You can dial in your BPM, and you can also change it to listen to MIDI in. So if you have another device taking care about the BPM and the MIDI sync, then you have to change it to MIDI. But be aware of that when you see something like that, probably your sync is set to MIDI. You can't change the BPM anymore. You can also use MTC in case you have compatible devices, and you can also change the MTC offset here as well. So this MIDI control is basically tied to the transport section, so you can say on whether you want to listen to, for example, stops and starts from the outside. Let's say if you have an input device which is a sequencer as well, or maybe something that also has a stop and start or transport function, then you might want to change it to in. So when you press the other box or make it play or press start, then the Yamaha RM1X will start at the same time as well. Or you can do it the other way around with sending the information out, or in both ways. Okay, Echobeckham is quite nice when you have, for example, a MIDI keyboard that connects to the MIDI in, and you want to pass all this information all the way out to the MIDI out device as well. This is quite useful if you have even more synthesizers that should be listening to the keyboard MIDI information as well. Okay, and on this page we have we can configure on whether the real-time parameters of the voice and effects menu are supposed to be sent out via MIDI. And these two parameters are for sending the voice and effect parameters on program change, meaning on style change, or on, not on program change, but on style change, or on pattern change to the internal sound engine, or out via MIDI. Okay, so another thing we already looked into is the setup menu. Just very quickly, you can configure on a per track basis the different channels. So the internal sound engine also listens to MIDI channels, and this is the 2TG basically, and you also can configure per channel on per track on what MIDI channel it should send data out. Okay, so there's also this edit menu in which you usually have a lot of MIDI information in, and this MIDI information, when you have some sequence going on, can be manipulated, can be deleted, you can insert new events in there, and you can also filter it out to have a better view in this previous list to know which data you're sending out via MIDI. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it in terms of MIDI. If you have any further questions, please leave a comment. I'll try to answer them, or at least figure them out in the manual. And yeah, I hope it helped you kind of getting an overview on how you can configure your Yamaha RM1X with your synthesizers via MIDI and your other groove boxes, of course. And yeah, hope to see you in yet another video, and yeah, see you there.